Hi, I'm John Sorensen, president of Evangelism Explosion International, and you're listening to Share Life Today. Well, today I'm privileged to talk with Ron Tyler, Dr. Ron Tyler. When I first met Ron, he was the Vice President of Africa for Evangelism Explosion. And actually, one of the very first trips that I got to take was with Ron as we traveled through the continent of Africa, went to Zimbabwe and to Kenya and to South Africa and got to see some amazing things that God was doing. Well, Ron, first of all, welcome.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
And I'd love to ask you first, before we get in, Ron's got a brand new book that we're going to talk about called You Want Me to Do What? And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But first, tell me how you got started with Evangelism Explosion.
Well, first I was a pastor, and I started using EE in my church. We were the fastest growing Methodist church in the particular area where I live.
Wow.
And it was all because of using EE. We had a high percent of people we were visiting that really, I hate to even say the number, but over 50% of the people we visited prayed to receive Jesus.
Wow.
and became active into our church. But that's how I used it. And then from that, if I could back up a second, that I was in the corporate world, and God called me into the ministry. But the way it was is I prayed this prayer. I said, Lord, I'll be anything you want me to be. I'll go anywhere you want me to go, and I'll do anything you want me to do. Now, John, that's a dangerous prayer.
That's a dangerous prayer, Ron.
Well, I had no intention of going to the ministry. I'd only been a Christian really having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ for about 2 years.
Wow.
And I was at that, and so at that time I prayed that prayer, and all of a sudden I felt the Lord say, I'm going to use you to reach hundreds of thousands of people for me. And at that time, Glenn and I were in the process of building our house. We'd only been in it 6 months. It was we'd been in it for about 6 months. And so I went back to our room. And of course, Belinda didn't hear God say that to her. She said it to me. He said it to me. And so I went back and I told Belinda, I said, we need to go home and sell our house. I need to quit my job and go to seminary. And so that's exactly what we did. And it's covered in the book, that story.
Yeah,
it's an exciting
fantastic.
story about that.
Well, Ron, one of the things that I always loved about you is you would tell stories. Oftentimes you would start speaking to a group and you'd say, journey with me, come with me, and you'd tell a story of what God was doing. Well, obviously somebody encouraged you to write some of those down, because that's this book, You Want Me to Do What? Now, what caused you to write this book, Ron?
Oh, well, I never wanted to write a book. That was never the plan. But the Lord just impressed upon me this last year in 2022 that I should start writing, take these stories and writing them down. And it ended up that I ended up with 50, and what I call 50 astonishing real life experiences of God's faithfulness. It's all about His faithfulness.
Amen.
And so I started writing them down, and then as I was writing them down, the next thing I know, that first I was just going to put them on YouTube or in a little pamphlet, and all of a sudden I felt God said, this is a book. And so I found a publisher, a Christian publisher, and from that, now you hear the rest of the story.
Now, is this you saying to God, you want me to do what? Or is this you saying to Dr. Kennedy when he says, Ron, you're going to go to Africa and you're going to reach every single nation of Africa? I think you also said, you want me to do what?
Oh, John, I tell you, almost every story is like, God, you want me to do what? And even to begin with, to leave the corporate world and sell our house and go to seminary and go on and get my master's and get my doctorate in ministry and all that, and in each chapter, they're very short, like 2 to 5 pages each one, 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 pages, that it gives you stories of God's faithfulness. And so yes, it was really to God. It's like, you want me to do what, Lord? And that's the way it was, and that's how the title came.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's awesome, and I love the stories. There are 50 stories in here of what God did through you and Belinda and your family after you moved to Africa, or even in the process of doing that. And what would be one or two of your favorites of stories in this book, Ron?
well, I had one story in Nigeria that took place, and I there was a team from the U.S., an EE team from a church in Omaha that came out, and they helped lead the clinic of training pastors in Nigeria in a very remote area. And so each day we take out uh, people on OJT. We just, as you know, John, we don't just talk about evangelism, we actually do.
Yeah.
And it was great. It gave these pastors an opportunity to see a trainer, and that was me in this particular group, to see me present the gospel. So we're walking into this small little village, and we're all these children around us, but I feel like God's leading me to go on into the village further. And so I look over and I see these five elderly men. Of course, elderly is younger than me now, but these five elderly men sitting on this wall. And one of the men said, and of course I had a translator, and he said, "Come and tell us about God." And I thought, wow, that's a divine appointment. And so I walked over to him, and I built a relationship with those five men. I presented the gospel, and at the end, all five men prayed to receive Jesus and receive the gift of eternal life. Well, John, the thing was, I got ready to leave, and one of the men said to me, he said, "Did your father know about this Jesus?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, "How long have you known about this Jesus?" And I counted up the number of years, and I told him. And then, John, the next question felt like a spear went through my heart when he said, "Why did you wait so long to
Amen.
come?" Oh, gosh, that just pierced me. But the beauty of Evangelism Explosion is that I could say, even though I'm going back to Kenya where I live, there's this pastor here that lives in the area. He is going to stay here, and he's going to help you grow. Well, the next day, these five men showed up at the training and said, "Can we tell what happened to us the day before?" And of course, we said yes. And then they told their story. It was a great encouragement to pastors and a great encouragement to me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, that is chapter 23 in the book for those of you who are watching this, and you're going to want to get these stories. Ron, there was one that you wrote, chapter 21. You asked something about, will God take care of my family? And I remember when I first heard about you, you had been in a pretty horrendous car accident and whatnot in Africa, and were laid up for a while. I mean, it was dangerous stuff what you were doing there. And what was the answer to that question, by the way? Does God take care of our family when we go into mission?
Well, I tell you, actually, uh, we had just arrived. We had flown into Nairobi, Kenya, and of course, my wife did not want to go to Africa, but that's another whole story of how God spoke to her when I had said, "I don't care if Africa falls off the face of the earth." And so, but anyway, that we just arrived, and we're sitting on the planes. Our daughter is sick, Anne Marie, from motion sickness. It's cold, it's damp because it's raining outside, and all of a sudden, Belinda's praying, "Is God, will you take care of us, take care of our family?" So we ended up getting in a vehicle and going to a place where we stayed for a couple of nights, and this is where other missionaries come into town and stay for a couple of days, get supplies, and go back home. Well, our son Timothy walked up to Belinda and said, and held in her hand something, and she looked at it and showed it to me, and it was a filling of one of his teeth.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, he said, he didn't know what it was. He was 9 years old, and all of a sudden, Belinda said, "Do you think they even have dentists here in Africa?" Well, we didn't know. We just moved here. And so we sit down at the table that night, John, and we're having dinner. And Belinda starts talking to one of the other missionaries beside us. And guess what he was?
A
dentist. That had just come into town. that day to receive supplies, was spending the night there at the mission guest house,
wow.
and the next day he was going home. Well, he said, I can take care of Timothy. And so, anyway, the rest of that story is in one of those other chapters. But,
Ron, thank you so much for writing these things down. I'm excited. I've enjoyed already just being able to peruse this a bit. And I know that all of our team are going to be excited. We're going to give everybody, all of our African leaders, a copy of this. We're going to give every one of our unrestricted donors and all the folks that give to any of our funds in Africa a copy of this book. And I just know they're going to be blessed by it as well. For those of you who are watching this and you say, hey, I'd like a copy, Ron, how could they get a copy of this? Where would they find a copy of You Want Me to Do What?
well, when you type that in, also put in by Ron Tyler, because there's several other books with a similar name.
Okay.
And so, but as John showed you the cover, that is that blue, and it has those rings around it. And the rings is it goes on and on and on. And there's another story about that.
Chilocho. Yeah, I'll never forget that. You planted that in my brain. I'll never forget.
That's an amazing story. But anyway, you can go to Amazon and type that in, and it goes right to it. You can get it on Kindle, or you can get it on a hard copy there on Amazon.
Well, Ron, bless you. Thank you for writing these things down. I know God's going to use it, and God bless you.
Thank you, John. And it's been a privilege to work for Evangelism Explosion for many, many years, and to use it in our personal life. And even though I'm in a new chapter in my life, I continue to use this ministry. It is a blessing to me, our family, and thousands of other people.